So when do you do debriefs and downselects? Stick around. In this video, I'm going to unpack that for you. But first, it's Friday night, and that means it's time for another episode of Agile Acquisitions and Alcohol. Cheers. All right. In last week's video, I talked about doing the downselect process in an acquisition, and I got a follow-up question, and I wanted to know, when do you do debriefs for vendors? And this is a really good question, and it actually is kind of complicated. So you can actually do debriefs at any phase in the down selection process, and vendors are entitled to it if that's something that you're offering in that acquisition process. However, for a vendor, it's a difficult decision because if you take a debrief after being down selected out of the first phase, you'll find out early on why you were removed from the competitive pool. And if there was some sort of misconduct, then of course you have the opportunity to challenge that. However, there's something called standing when it comes to protesting acquisitions. And after that initial phase, you will no longer have, well, first off, you won't have access to information for the following phases. So you really won't know why the winning vendor was ever selected. You won't be privy to that information because you've already received your down select. You're now completely out. If, however, you wait until the ending phase, the final selection, to get your debrief, you'll then find out why the winning vendor won and how that pricing compared to your pricing. But you'll no longer have standing because you will have been eliminated. It's like 15 days prior to the decision point. So at that point, even if you find something you're not happy with, there's really not much you can do with it. So the question really comes down to, as a vendor, why are you protesting? If you're protesting genuinely because you want to improve your competitive posture for future acquisitions, then really waiting to the end to get as much information as you can so you can take that back and use it for future acquisition opportunities to improve your competitiveness, that's what I'd recommend. If you genuinely think that you had a great solution and you just really need to understand right away why you were kicked out in the hopes that maybe you can clarify something and get back in, and you're willing to give up the additional information you would otherwise get, then doing it immediately when you were removed from competitive pool would make the most sense. All that being said, it's a decision you have to make. But from the government standpoint, when should you offer it or when should you not? I always think it's a good idea to give industry feedback. There's some acquisitions that require debriefs, some acquisitions that don't. I don't think it matters. And honestly, I don't get too hung up or uptight about the kind of information I share because, one, when I do acquisitions, I do them ethically and fairly, and I make sure due diligence is done. So I'm perfectly comfortable sitting down with vendors and giving them feedback on their proposals because I really want them to do better next time because that's in the best interest of the taxpayer and the federal government. So there you go. This is part 2 to the down selection process, talking about the debriefing, when it makes sense to do it. There is no right or wrong answer. It just depends on the kind of information you really want to get. When it comes to the government's sake of doing the down select, you're actually a little safer from protests if that's a fear you have, because if you get protested early on, you have time to fix it. And later on, those that were kicked out earlier have less repercussions because of standing. So that's kind of debrief, phased selection debriefs in a nutshell. So there you go. I'm coming to you live, not from my basement here, but from Chincoteague, Virginia for Memorial Weekend. And just want to say that I'm thinking about all of the families that have sacrificed for this country so that we can have our freedoms and our opportunities, so we can have conversations like these. So to all the veterans who have served this country and to the families who've lost them, cheers.